Aloha and welcome to this video in which we dive upon a forbidden island. Remote and detached from the rest of the island chain, Niihau is a real lost world. When most people think of the Hawaiian Islands, they think of the four main islands, Kauai, Oahu, Maui and the big island Hawaii. But in reality, there are over 137 islands in the chain, including many small islets and small rocks spread out along the entire archipelago. Even looking at the main islands, there are still 8 not 4, with Lanai, Molokai and Koholalwe making up the rest of Maui County. We have visited all of these with the exception of Koholalwe, that is kapu to anyone who is not native Hawaiian, and is an unpopulated island. The 8th main island is also largely a no-go. Off to the north of Kauai, cut off from the rest of the chain by a rough oceanic channel, this rugged little strip of land is the last major island in the Hawaiian chain and is forbidden to almost every person on the planet. Known as the Forbidden Isle, this inaccessible, largely uninhabited island is untouched and out of reach to most tourists, with most people getting nothing more than a tantalizing glimpse through the oceanic haze from Kauai. Niihau really is a lost world and we were seriously lucky to be heading out there today. We were diving with Seasport Divers, located in Poipu Kauai and operating out of Kukui'ula Small Boat Harbour. It was a really early start and a long and challenging day that lay before us to get over to the island for some of the best diving on the planet. I had been really unsure about this trip, as for me, many of the dive reports and videos I had seen showed a very so-so dive location. It always looked pretty barren and quite cold, with the only real highlight being the monk seals. So as we boarded the boat, I was possibly the first person in history to head to Niihau, seriously doubting if I should have bothered. The boat ride over was long, nearly 3 hours, and while conditions were actually pretty mild, it was still a rough crossing and anyone without hardy sea legs would really struggle. This also left us on the wrong side of the channel, cut off from civilization by a large expanse of wild open ocean. However, the crossing was pretty magical. Apart from the very interesting chats with the crew and the insightful and gripping dive briefings from real experts, letting us know exactly what we can expect to see on our visit, we also got one of the best whale watching tours we've ever done. First up were the pilot whales, a huge pod just cruising along, the crew happy to turn the boat a few times for a better look. Then came a super pod of pygmy killer whales. The crew genuinely excited and happy to see the ocean life. You got a real sense these guys just wanted to be here and loved hunting out all forms of marine life. They didn't really seem to care if we were there or not, they just adored being on the ocean and spending the day exploring these remote, untouched waters. It's just great to see people really in tune with what they do and the natural world. This was one of the best dive teams I've ever had the pleasure to dive with. Finally, just before reaching Niihau, a large pod of bottlenose dolphins appeared. These are more normally solitary, so rare to see them in a pod like this. After all the amazing whale sightings, we finally made it across to Niihau and the first dive site. We had all been well briefed beforehand, so we eagerly geared up, dropping into the ocean. The first dive site and the most famous and documented site on Niihau. This site gives almost guaranteed monk seal interactions, but there is way more to this site than just the chance to dive with the seriously rare Hawaiian monk seals. This is a deep dive, with even deeper water off to the left. Most of the dives at Niihau are in the channel, so water depths are average, but here you are exposed to the eastern flank of the island and the water depth dropping off quickly to tens of thousands of feet. And this is where the site gets its name, as you really can feel the depths below calling you. The deep water also provides a large upwelling of nutrient-dense water, and this provides food for an unimaginable amount of fish. This was the real star of the dive, the sheer number of fish that inhabited the reef edge, the big picture as the dive crew called it. It was really spectacular. If Before long, the first monk seal arrived, and we were all well briefed not to approach them, just rest a good distance from them and see what they wanted to do. The dive team worked closely with the authorities, and these dives are not harmful to the monk seals, and in fact allows the conservation agencies to keep a close eye on the populations as the dive teams monitor them weekly. There are only 400 Hawaiian monk seals left in Hawaii, with another 1,000 or so further north, making these one of the most endangered mammals on the planet. The good news is that numbers are going up, slowly. As we watched the seal just relaxing on the rock, another seemed annoyed at the attention it was getting and crept up behind us to steal the show. We just held fast and were amazed how close the seal came to us. We then just carried on the dive, taking in the big picture, exploring the walls and marvelling at this incredible location. Here I made a bit of a boo-boo, as you can see by watching the ocean snow. As you can see, I was fixated on the seal and I started rising pretty quickly in the water column. A big no-no. If you're enjoying this video, please remember to like it and subscribe to the channel for loads more diving and Hawaii content. And also, please try and watch the video through to the end, as this is the most important ranking factor according to the YouTube gods. Even as we hung out under the boat on our safety stop, the seals still played all around us. Really magical. We were very lucky to do this site, as more often than not it is inaccessible due to currents and large swells, but we were lucky enough to get to dive it. The first part of the dive is pretty barren. There was not much in the Keyhole, but the topography and light was really stunning, really showcasing the water clarity. As we headed out of the Keyhole, life started to pick up again, and we spent some time exploring the various nooks and crannies along the wall of this massive cave. Until we were back out on the wall and it started raining fish once more. Here you can see the shoals of fish diving for cover. And here is why as a large trevally cruised by. We then get visited by a huge spotted eagle ray. This is about as big as these rays get, and it hung around for quite a lot of the dive. This is when the first shark showed up, as things took a more predatory turn. We then entered another cave area, which again was pretty lifeless but spectacular in terms of light, colour and topography. But there was still lots of cool smaller stuff dotted around the reefs and the walls. As the air began to run low, the monk seals showed up, determined to get the attention they craved. And as we hung around on the safety stop, the sharks began circling below. That had been an incredible 2 dives and the whole boat was pretty jacked, but the reality dawned on most of us. On these 3 tank dives, normally the final dive is a bit of an add-on. These days are long and tiring, people get exhausted, sick and have equipment issues or get a bit close to their dive limits and drop out, so dive masters always pick the best sites first. It's just human nature. So we all kind of knew the last dive would be just okay. Probably not as good as the other 2, but seeing how incredible they were, that was probably still alright. But we all felt we were just going through the motions. You too may be thinking of clicking away, like some of us on the boat were thinking about the 3rd dive. That would be a mistake, as this dive was seriously epic. If you made it this far, you're going to want to stick around for the end. The first 2 dives all started slow, but this time we got an instant welcome. As we explored the area, we got to see some very rare soft corals. These do not readily thrive in Hawaiian waters, and this was one of only a few spots where you will find soft corals. Not as spectacular as sharks, rays and monk seals, but cool in its own right. We then carried on exploring the nooks and crannies of the wall before heading into the Neon Cave, which was beautiful, but again a bit lifeless. As we started heading out of the Neon Cave, the life began to pick up, and then the dive just went absolutely turbo. These sharks just kept coming in, making repeated close passes. They seemed to have absolutely no fear, but also no dangerous intentions towards us whatsoever. We felt completely safe, just totally awestruck. As we carried on towards Pyramid Point, guess who showed up to say hi? If you dive for long enough, you always end up with a bogey animal. Something you really want to see, but never do. This for me is manta rays. I have always wanted to dive with mantas since my first taste of scuba, and well before that to be honest, but I have never managed it despite multiple attempts. I had a manta dive booked in a week's time over in Kona, and that guaranteed this duck will be broken soon. However, Niihau decided that it wasn't going to give the big island that glory, and as the dive master started rattling the safety buoy line to mark the end of the dive, something pretty exciting happened. Just listen to the whoops and hollers of the divers. Not the closest past, but still very, very exciting. We then stayed pretty shallow as we used up the last of our air, but this amazing dive site was not finished yet. I'm going to leave this next clip unedited just to show you how fast things were really coming at us. Everywhere we looked was either a shark or a monk seal, with the sharks making some really close passes. And again, even as we sucked the last few drops of air on our safety stop, the fun never ended. The boat ride back was long and arduous, taking even longer than the ride out. Conditions were even worse, and most of us were sodden and very fatigued by the time we got back to the harbour, over 12 hours after starting out. A long and grueling day out on the water. I started the trip apprehensive that it would not be worth the amount of time I would lose out of my vacation. But I was so wrong. That final dive makes it into my top 3 dives ever, and I've done some pretty epic diving in my time. I was worried the waters would not feel tropical and maybe a little lifeless, but instead, I found this to be a classic seamount dive, with the upwellings from the deep hosting a staggering amount of life, the reef teeming with unbelievable amounts of fish. Some of the big picture scenes just mind-blowing, and of course, the megafauna just the icing on a very delicious cake. Would the 6 hours sailing time be worth it just to see monk seals? No, probably not, but honestly, the monk seals are not even the best part of this staggering, thriving, untouched dive wilderness. An amazing day with an amazing crew in an amazing location. The only downside was I missed the happy hour back at the resort bar. It's worth noting that this is for only experienced divers. However, if you make the grade and fit the criteria, don't even hesitate. Just book your Niihau diving experience right away. I guarantee you will not be disappointed. Keep tuned to the channel as we have more diving coming up, along with snorkeling and many more Hawaii adventures and more travel content from our up and coming trips. Mahalo for watching.